Welcome everyone to the Urantia book. We're going to be looking at divine truth and beauty today. This is a genius, absolutely mind-blowing presentation that really can only be formulated by advanced celestial beings. But like usual, don't take my word for it. Read this, synthesize this, see what you think about it. Please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. We're growing quickly. This is about unity and not uniformity. So this book isn't something that you need to believe in every single sentence to be a part of a certain religion or anything like that. Just saying, here it is. You do what you will with it, folks. This is a paper on divine truth and beauty. It is on page 42. Let's get right into this reading. There's some mind-blowing, and remember, it's not just for the sake of knowledge or so we can do one-upsmanship on somebody who hasn't read this or anything like that. This is about intellectual illumination, but also spiritual uplift in synthesizing these things into our lives and allowing us to find the unity when we are talking with somebody with a different viewpoint, and why we can both be under the same God in the same family of divinity. Divine truth and beauty. All finite knowledge and creature understanding are relative. Information and intelligence gleaned from even high sources is only relatively complete, locally accurate, and personally true. Look at that. All finite knowledge and creature understanding. A good example of that would be something like the Revolutionary War. If you were to say that the Revolutionary War is truth to an advanced celestial being, they would tell you that it's a fact. It's a circumscribed fact in time and space, which is a shadow reality of the eternal and the infinite. The truth is living. The Revolutionary War is the dead past. So that's why it is just finite knowledge, okay? And creature understanding as finite beings of that finite knowledge. Physical facts are fairly uniform, but truth is a living and flexible factor in the philosophy of the universe. Evolving personalities are only partially wise and relatively true in their communications. They can be certain only as far as their personal experience extends. So they're not saying throw physical facts out of the window and none of them mean anything. They're saying they're just uniform things, but truth is the living and flexible factor. Your personal experience, in fact, can be that God is a reality. If you have personally embarked upon your faith walk, you have had a change of heart, and now you're experiencing the reality of God. That is a personal experience, which can be truth. That which apparently may be wholly true in one place may be only relatively true in another segment of creation. A good example of that is evolution. We know that that is a fact. That's scientific consensus, which is fact. And that is our reality, but that does not apply to the central universes of Havona, where beings are created in perfection, all your angelic beings and that sort of thing. They don't need to evolve. Divine truth, final truth, is uniform and universal. But the story of things spiritual, as it is told by numerous individuals hailing from various spheres, may sometimes vary in details, owing to this relativity in the completeness of knowledge and the repleteness of personal experience, as well as in the length and extent of that experience. Okay? So they're saying there is a thing that is divine truth. It's not just that everything is always relative. They're saying there is a divine truth, which is final and uniform, which is the thing of the reality of experiencing God, the reality of God's benevolence, God's love. But even something like a statement as, like God is love. The Urantia book teaches that God is infinitely more than love. So you can see how these things can always be built upon. They're like scaffolding towards a living truth, not dead crystallized creeds and dogmas. Sometimes, and so we're having these different personal experiences. Remember, we're all spokes on one wheel looking inward towards the center. The center of that is the source of creation, the first source and center, God. But we have a different viewpoint and vantage point on that, being on different spokes. While the laws and decrees, the thoughts and attitudes of the first great source and center are eternally, infinitely, and universally true, at the same time their application to and adjustment for every universe, system, world, and created intelligence are in accordance with the plans and technique of the Creator Sons, as they function in their respective universes, as well as in harmony with the local plans and procedures of the Infinite Spirit and all other associated celestial personalities. So you have to adapt and change these things because they're different based on different factors in various universes. They teach that there's two-brained worlds, which we are, left and right hemisphere. There's three-brained worlds, and there's single-brained worlds. So there's different modes of thinking. So you have to take that divine and final truth, as they're calling it. They're not saying that. Don't ever get it twisted that God is not divinely true and eternally true. That is the unchallengeable dogma that we can hang our hats upon. But then how it synthesizes out from there requires a flexible technique to not deny that, but apply that. The false science of materialism would sentence mortal man to become an outcast in the universe. Such partial knowledge is potentially evil. It is knowledge composed of both good and evil. Truth is beautiful because it is both replete and symmetrical. So they're saying the false science of materialism, that is an attitude. That is when science begins to now form its own dogma and take an attitude towards something like denying the existence of God. That's not saying that there's no such thing as scientific facts, right? You can't use science can't have an attitude towards deity and divinity because those are things that are beyond man's science. And same thing with philosophy, as we'll see here. Philosophers commit their gravest error when they are misled into the fallacy of abstraction, the practice of focusing the attention upon one aspect of reality and then pronouncing such an isolated aspect to be the whole truth. So if they're isolating the fact that this is a time-space image shadow, they'll say brain in the tank philosophy. Oh, well, how do you know we're not just all brains floating in a tank? Then they're doing an abstraction, right? They're saying if they're making that their universe, ideology, then they're too dogmatizing, all right? So that's a dangerous thing to do. The wise philosopher will always look for the creative design which is behind and pre-existent to all universe phenomena. So even in the brain in the tank philosophy, well, who created the brains and put them in the tank? And then who created that? Who created that? We as spiritualists could go up. First great source and center, creator of all. The creator thought invariably precedes creative action. So that's the way that you can expand upon those philosophies, but you can't just isolate them or dogmatize them, because remember, truth is living. Intellectual self-consciousness can never discover the beauty of truth, its spiritual quality, not only by the philosophic consistency of its concepts, but more certainly and surely by the unerring response of the ever-present spirit of truth, okay? Oh, it can discover. I don't know if I said that. But we're not denying philosophy either. We want these things to be able to fit and to make sense on the level of philosophy. And we'll get into an example of that later on. But we have something within us called the spirit of truth, which makes it so that we are receptive. It's a spirit presence, which makes it so when we hear things like this and we say, yeah, that all fits. That lines up with me. God is love. Yeah, that makes sense. Why wouldn't it be love? Oh, I'm supposed to love my brothers and sisters, all humans. That makes sense. Why would I want to kill one of them, for these rational, normal-minded beings. The abnormal-minded beings, they do want to kill because they're just not responsive to these things. There's been a lot of factors, which the book points out, both genetic and environmental influences, why some beings are just so beyond being receptive towards these things. Happiness ensues from the recognition of truth because it can be acted out. It can be lived. Disappointment and sorrow attend upon error because, not being a reality, it cannot be realized in experience. So that's why those disappointments, they drop away as you progress on in your spiritual path. Divine truth is best known by its spiritual flavor. So that right there shows that it's It has to be something that can be known. There's not a theorem or a philosophy that we can write on a thing. You have to experience this for yourself. This is what this is all about. You experience this spiritual flavor, and that is when you start to synthesize and harmonize all of these things. And then these things will drop away, right? The eternal quest is for unification, for divine coherence. The far-flung physical universe coheres in the Isle of Paradise. The intellectual universe coheres in the God of Mind, the conjoined actor. That's the third person of the Trinity. The spiritual universe is coherent in the personality of the eternal Son. But the isolated mortal of time and space coheres in God the Father through the direct relationship between the indwelling thought adjuster and the universal Father. Well, let's just break that down. That's just saying those things are more fundamental. Those are the creators of mind. That is where the unity takes place, in those creators. But they're so vast that they can encompass all of it, all the ideas, all the things. But we convene in the universal Father. That is or cohere, right? Okay? Because we're indwelt by thought adjusters, which is our spirit fragment of God. Man's adjuster is a fragment of God and everlastingly seeks for divine unification. It coheres with and in the paradise deity of the first source and center. So that is how this unification takes place, because it's the most fundamental essence of what we are, of what our being is. Yet we can choose to merge with that fundamental essence and continue on as personalities in the universe, or we can choose to embrace evil, sin, and divorce ourselves from it and simply cease to exist as entities in the universe. The discernment of supreme beauty is the discovery and integration of reality. Okay, so that's what beauty is. You discover it and you integrate it. The discernment of the divine goodness is in the eternal truth that is ultimate beauty. See, these things are coordinated. Truth, beauty. You can't have one without the other. Even the charm of human art consists in the harmony of its unity. So as somebody, I'm an artist, and that for me is this process of taking my own human experience, which was born here and started out here when I was a child, and that divine eternal fragment that is within me right now and also within you. And then those are the most vast contrasts that I'm personally experiencing. So if I make art that, reflects that, then that is charming. The great mistake of the Hebrew religion was its failure to associate the goodness of God with the factual truth of science and the appealing beauty of art. Okay, so they're isolating things here. Okay, if you throw away science, if you throw away evolution, and it will read this because it talks about how modern day humans are rejecting these religions because they're, they don't want to be that simpleton who's saying, no, this book said this, this Bible said this. And even the Urantia book points out this is just Revelation is never definitive. So this isn't saying this book is ultimate truth. And that's because it's able to point out its own relativity as a circumscribed revelation in this moment of time, in this juncture of space, shows that it's not claiming to be God, whereas the people are claiming essentially that the Bible is God, this written word is God. And that's the difference between the Urantia book and the Bible, or the Hebrew. The Hebrews go for the first testament of the Bible. But you have to be open to these new scientific presentations, all right? As civilization progressed, and since religion continued to pursue the same unwise course of overemphasizing the goodness of God to the relative exclusion of truth and neglect of beauty, there developed an increasing tendency for certain types of men to turn away from the abstract and disassociated concept of isolated goodness. See, it's all just like spiritual fluff with no real meat on the bones for these thinking men and women who are like, we need the meat too. I like your spiritual fluff. I like the goodness of God. I don't want to deny that, but let's now hit it from other angles as well. So here, listen, this is where this gets really juicy. The overstressed and isolated morality of modern religion, very true. The overstressed and isolated morality, because each one has their own little, club, people are leaving the clubs. It's not like it had the hold over people back in those olden times where all they needed to do was have an altar made of gold and everybody would go, ooh, you must be, the divine chosen ones and everything. It fails to hold the devotion and loyalty of many 20th century men. That's why this book is a genius assessment. It's not denying, it's saying religion, that's so true. Religion doesn't hold 20th century men. It will hold very select converts of certain things, but how many different religions are there, right? Would rehabilitate itself. Okay, so religion would rehabilitate itself in addition to its moral mandates, which would be the goodness of God, which they understand. It would give equal consideration to the truths of science, okay? Evolution is reality, but God started evolution. So we could have them both. We don't need to deny it. Philosophy, a great example of how science or man's religion is having a misleading philosophy is because of these inconsistencies, like saying that God needed to see Jesus dying on the cross before he started to have sympathy and forgiveness for the human beings. He needed to see that ransom paid in blood in order to then say, now I forgive these human beings. God has an eternal nature of love and forgiveness. So that changing attitude, that's a philosophic inconsistency. And people that are philosophic thinkers will look at that and they'll reject religion as a whole. And when they do that, they reject God as well. And they do something called throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because they're saying that's philosophic. The concept of hell is a philosophic inconsistency. Why would God want to? Doesn't he not have control to end hell? Right? Well, there's justice in the universe, but the justice is that you cease to exist if you divorce yourself from spiritual reality. Not that you get punished for eternity in pitchfork and fireland. Okay, so that's philosophically inconsistent. Either God doesn't have, he's not all powerful, and Lucifer is his equal, essentially. Or he's not all merciful and he wants to do torture forever. I mean, that's the type of thing that people are rejecting religion. And it happens even in all of your mystic. People go towards the mystic and that will satisfy them, the Eastern. That has satisfied the New Age. But then they don't really have a full synthesis of this personality of God, because theirs is often philosophic abstraction land as well. And they can't really fully all come to terms and agree that we're all in the same family under the same God. And spiritual experience. But even saying that, these mystics are having deep spiritual experience, and the religionists, the Western, the religionist wants to deny that. Your Kundalini awakenings and all of these types of things. And they're saying, that he's still going to go to hell, right? Because he's Hindu. And to the beauties of the physical creation, the charm of intellectual art, and the grandeur of genuine character achievement. You see, that is what we want to appreciate all of these things. This is an uplifting, the charm of this art, okay? Not to say you can make this certain art and you can't make this certain art. That's the type of thing that makes people turn away from it. The grandeur of genuine character achievement. Not that you're a slave and puppet to this angry God. Get that out of my face. The religious challenge of this age is to those far-seeing and forward-looking men and women, us, of spiritual insight, who will dare to construct a new and appealing philosophy of living out of the enlarged and exquisitely integrated modern concepts of cosmic truth, right? We're using our science, our telescopes and things, and even beyond that, synthesizing universe beauty and divine goodness. Such a new and righteous vision of morality will attract all that is good in the mind of man and challenge that which is best in the human soul. And that's what we want. We want those growth of character challenges. Truth, beauty, and goodness are divine realities. And as man ascends the scale of spiritual living, the supreme qualities of the eternal become increasingly coordinated and unified in God, who is love. So there's this unification of all of these. You can't have one without the other, as we said. And we grow and ascend of these. It's not just creeds dead things. It's living. All truth, material, philosophic, or spiritual, is both beautiful and good. All real beauty, material, art, or spiritual symmetry, is both true and good. All genuine goodness, whether personal morality, social equity, or divine ministry, is equally true and beautiful. Health, sanity, and happiness are integrations of truth and goodness. See, now you're saying, you're using these things, which you can make a concept about it, right? But now you're making them into your living reality. And that's where you come up with health and sanity. You're looking at scientific fact that says that alcohol causes cancer, right? But people say, well, Jesus drank wine. Well, that's a dead fact. The living truth would say, we've discovered alcohol creates cancer. So you're integrating sanity, happiness. They're all blended in your human experience. Such levels of efficient living come about through the unification of the energy systems, idea systems, and spirit systems. We don't deny, right? We unify. Truth is coherent, beauty attractive, goodness stabilizing. And when these values of that which is real are coordinated in personality experience, the result is a high order of love conditioned by wisdom and qualified by loyalty, right? So you're conditioning that love with wisdom. Again, unity, unify love and wisdom. If you have one, then you don't have the other. And then loyalty to divine ideals, right? Not just man's circumscribed, even philosophical, political, whatever viewpoint that you want to say. You have loyalty to the divine, and then everything else synthesized is from there. The real purpose of all universe education is to effect the better coordination of the isolated childs of the worlds with the larger realities of his expanding experience. Let's read that one again. The real purpose of all universe education. This is what this book is, okay? It's universe education, and it's trying to coordinate us isolated, extremely isolated here on this planet, not even just because it's a time space, but we're under that quarantine from our Lucifer rebellions. So we're not getting all these spiritual broadcasts and so forth. Reality is finite on the human level, infinite and eternal on higher and divine levels. You see, that's why the Revolutionary War, that is a fact, but it's not a truth because it's finite. To a being, an eternal being, that's not their living reality, right? Their living reality is these higher and divine levels. It's these ideals, goodness, stabilizing, all that sort of thing. Presented by a divine counselor, very high and advanced being, as you can see from the caliber of those words. So there it is, folks. Truth, fact, beauty, goodness. Thanks again for checking out the videos. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.